this person can't take care of themselves. And I'm sorry, but how do you add to that list of things that need to be done in the name of gender ideology?
I'm going to challenge myself and be very kind when I say this.
I am not going to be kind or challenge myself. Nope. Absolutely disgusting that we are doing this to one of our disabled individuals. Oh my God. Like, what the f*** is wrong with my community? This is exactly what I have been talking about. This is exactly why the LGB needs to separate, and we need to have the TS stand up and disavow all of this.
Rocky, thank you so much for coming back to Voices with Vicky. I appreciate it so much for you being here today. For our audience members who are not familiar with Rocky, his name is The Middle Gay on TikTok. He also can be found on Instagram and YouTube. We did a video together, which feels like 100 years ago now. And we've both come a long way since. So thank you again for being here. We've got a lot to talk about. So much has happened in the last 6 months. So we had an election. Kamala versus Trump is what it ended up with. If I had had my pick, it would not have been either one of them. But that's what we were left with. Obviously, Trump won that election, and he's been in office now for 4 days. 4 days he's been officially in office, and people are losing their minds.
They really
losing
are.
it. And I kind of thought that that's what was going to happen, but I also am surprised that people's level of hysteria and complete lack of common sense is at the top. Like, I really thought some people would say, hey, you know, maybe it's not going to be that bad, or maybe the mainstream media really is lying about some things. But apparently people are still, if you hate Trump, you hate Trump. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I can respect that as long as people are being rational and not fear-mongering. But there are a great deal of psycho people that just insist on the narrative of, say, Hitler, for example. Elon Musk recently at the inauguration did a speech. And at the end of that speech, where he was talking about having people in his hearts, he gave up a gesture like this, not once, but turned around and did it twice. And I think maybe it was 5 seconds after he did it that it was on every single newsreel, article, headline that you could find.
I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
And I wanted to get your thoughts about that. What do you think's going on there?
I think that first off, that we have to look at, more than just a still. I think we need to look at the whole clips, right? And also, I think that the left is going to be. Let me start with in 2016 when he won and the news media went crazy and it was every single day how bad he is, how much of a Nazi he is. And I'm sorry if I talk TikTok languages, it will just kind of come out.
That's okay. It keeps me from having to edit it completely out.
So a lot of things that he did that was good was missed, right? And a couple of things that I would like to just bring up, he did, first off, one of my favorite things that he did was he made it a felony for animal cruelty. I cannot see how anybody can't say that that's not a good thing.
Right.
He also was the first incoming president who was in support of gay marriage. He also was the first president to appoint somebody to one of the highest levels of government that happened to be openly gay, Rick Grinnell. He was the German ambassador. And him and Rick went to the UN to help to promote decriminalization of homosexuality through places in the world that our gay brothers and sisters take a very short trip off of a very tall place.
Yes.
So there was so much hate, so much media blocking all these good things. And that's not to say that we shouldn't highlight when something is wrong, right?
Sure.
So with Elon, first off, my concern with the way people are treating him is that he is actually on the autistic spectrum.
Yes.
And I watched it and I watched it. Now I work as direct care support for people with autism. And the first thing I'm going to say is if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. There is so many variant differences between each individual, but there are some things that are very similar, right? So when he was coming up on stage, he was stimming. You could obviously see he was stimming, and he was overstimulated. And I think that he was so excited, and you can see that. And then the fact that people are ignoring that or even making fun of him, especially when it was perceived that President Trump had made fun of that mentally challenged individual,
the journalist. Yeah.
The journalist, right? But again, it's all about the whole clip. It's about even reading the transcripts of the situation. And we'll talk about one particular thing when we get a little bit more. Well, I guess we're kind of into Trump, but this is Elon. And I'm not going to do well, didn't you see when Hillary did it and Obama and so on and so forth, because that's not really helpful. It really isn't. I see this all on TikTok, and I see people from the right going, well, don't you see? And no, let's address the situation completely and utterly on Elon. So not only the Nazi hand movement is a military salute.
Yeah.
And it's very, very specific. And to just attribute somebody of that, I think is actually not only is it not appropriate and it's disingenuous, is I actually think you are doing a lot of harm towards the people that it really means something to, if you know what I mean by that. And I think that you are actually mitigating the importance of World War II and what happened during the Holocaust. And I don't feel that this is the way that we as a society needs to address these things. I think that we need to look at it and pick it apart. If anybody has any doubt, I had said prior to voting for Donald Trump this election, which is the first time that I have voted red in a presidential election. I've voted green and I've voted blue. But this time I voted for Trump, and I think that we need to focus, there's things I already want to call him out on, right? So I have no problem in doing that. Just like I have no problem holding accountable any other Republican, Democrat, independent, green, libertarian, so on and so forth. I'm going to call it all out. I typically call out my own community and the craziness that happens within it. But this affects my community as well. And I think that with Elon, we need to realize that are there some things that I think is a little suspect and a little worrisome? Absolutely, right? Biggest donation to a political candidate. He has an office in the White House. He has a lot of, I know all of these things, right?
Right.
However, can we look at
all that happens with every I was
Oh,
going to say that happens with every administration to some degree. There's always some person that isn't quite in the White House, but seems to have all this power over the White House. Some people on the right would say that that's George Soros. Um,
well, I
some people
remember
would,
very clearly during Bill Clinton's administration. Now, yes, Hillary was his wife and therefore first lady and part of
yeah,
the administration in a way, right? Sort of. But I remember everyone saying that she was pulling the strings. She was the one who was,
yes,
and that's so long ago. I just bring it up as an example of
right.
there's always been somebody in the White House that has maybe a little bit more influence than they should.
Sure. And I think with the case of Elon Musk too, I attribute a lot of this with Elon Musk as very irresponsible journalism. I think it starts there
Yes.
because you get CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, all of these outlets, USA Today, whatever. They're all either saying he gave the Nazi salute, implying that he gave the Nazi salute, straight up saying like that he's part of some Hitler regime, practically, and so on and so forth. And what does that do? Is it fear mongers to people who are already on edge, that are already upset about the fact that Trump is back in office. They already have doubts about what could potentially happen in this administration. And what does the media do? They feed and lean into that negativity without
Mhm.
any real evidence besides a weird gesture that was given. I think we all know that Elon Musk is not a Nazi, nor does he attribute to any Hitler ideology whatsoever. I think we all know that. But trying to convince people who are in hysterics and are almost psychotic over this is impossible. And
Oh,
so I think
absolutely.
the responsibility starts with bad journalism. And that's where I call out first. But then it continues into sectors of society and people who, like you said, they don't want to look at the full clip. They don't want to see the context of the speech. They don't want to explore what a Nazi salute actually is and what it means in Nazi Germany in 1942. So that's very important. Perspective and context is everything. And we live in this reactive society where we see
Oh, yeah.
something on our phone and we immediately erupt into some sort of emotional hysterics. So I'm very concerned about that because this narrative about Hitler, this is not the first time this has come up, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. Even Kamala Harris went out there during her campaign and marched up and had to do some speech and interrupt the news to tell everybody that Trump did something that somehow connects to something with Nazism. I don't know if you remember that.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify in his mind as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials.
This is a deliberate way to sort of like discredit them. And what better way to do it than comparing them to one of the most disgusting atrocities that humankind has ever seen. The level of suffering that went on during those times and what happened to those people. You're comparing this administration to that. You're comparing this country to that. What does that say about our country right now and the state of the mind with the people? It's really disgusting. It's so disheartening.
It is. And nobody, like, when I'm on TikTok and I hold a live, my space is for everybody. I mean, minus very extreme, few extremes, right? But I want liberal, I want conservative, red, blue, green, purple, everybody to come. And one of the rules that I have is that we have to speak, softly. We need to listen. We need to, and you saw a glimpse of it the other night, how difficult that really is. And it's because our legacy media, our mainstream media is pushing these narratives and really, really, I've talked about fear mongering before, right? And I talk about it usually when it comes to voting, and some of the propaganda that falls under. So, but it's almost even worse. The amount of just false information about whatever he does. And so as an example, I'll give your audience an example. I had somebody send me a video about him saying of all ages when it was talking about gender ideology. So I was like, okay, all right. The way that this clip is, it is sounding hella scary. And I, so what did I do? I took the whole clip, I took the transcript, I read it, I analyzed it, and I went through it, and then I tried to talk to this person. And even when you come with some of this information, people, I feel bad. I do. Like, a lot of people are just so close-minded. If you would have gotten me 10 years ago, I would never have been like, Democrat, yay, Republican, bad. And somebody had said the other day, where they're dividing us. And I'm like, no, they're not dividing us. They've already done that. Now they're conquering.
That's been done. Yes.
Yeah, the divide has happened. There's very few people out here in social media world plus real world that is willing to sit and have a conversation from somebody from a different political ideology. What we should be doing is being critical and analytical and making sure that the information, like, we the people need to hold our media accountable, and that's why there's a lot of.
I was going to say that we need to engage in, like, abstract thinking. We're allowing our media to tell us how to think. We're allowing our government to tell us how to think. And that's got to stop. Like, when are people going to sit down? And that's the thing, is that it takes energy and time to sit down and read a law or read about constitutional law and how it's applied in our government and in our society. And, that kind of brings me into the Trump two genders thing that just came out, right? And he rescinded a couple of President Biden's executive orders. And first of all, people need to understand what an executive order is. And then it's not an override of the Constitution.
Right. Okay? People are actually believing that this executive order is overriding the 1964 Equal Rights Act. And it's not. It's not at all.
Because it's enshrined in the Constitution. You can't.
Well, not even just that. It is a constitutional order, right? It's a constitutional law. We need Congress to change that. You cannot, simply put, you cannot, as the president, write an executive order to change that.
Yeah, with this new executive order with Trump, with the two genders thing, the two sexes. I mean, first of all, I'm not surprised. I'm
No,
not
not at
surprised
all.
because of all the insanity that's happened over the last 4 years. So it's not something that I'm like shocked about or even necessarily too worried about. I think that it could have consequences. I'm not really sure. I think that generally speaking, it's probably not that big of a deal. But I do know that there are some people that have concerns about it.
So I did just watch a video on YouTube on it was Rising with Bobby Sylvie, something like that, and they've been having a rotating cast, if you will. But they
Right.
had brought in a trans woman to talk about this particular topic, and I would really love to do a reaction video with you on that. So we should look into that. But my opinion about it is, I'm not surprised. The separation of what the social aspects of gender is and how it's described now is very different, right? They're like, gender and sex are not the same, and like that example that I used earlier, there is a connection between sex and gender, right? I will stand 10 toes down that gender roles, gender stereotypes, gendered clothing, gendered toys, so on and so forth, all social construct. If a boy wants to wear a dress because he thinks
Let
it
him.
is the coolest thing since sliced bread, go ahead, dude, do it
Yeah.
up, right? We only say that that's girls' clothing because we have gendered items as well as jobs and nail polish, like so those things I think people conflate with the connection between sex and gender, and that's when they're all like, sex and gender are two different things, and da 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 da, and like, I think they don't necessarily understand what gender expression really is. But
Well, I think it's taking something as far as identity to like the next level, right? So it used to be you're transsexual, you're a man, you want to be a woman, you transition. That's on the binary from one sex to another. The gender stuff is sort of they've put that on top of, the sex aspect of things. So somebody like me, for example, I've always been a tomboy. I haven't been somebody that wears a dress very often. I think my wedding and a few other occasions, I've worn a dress in my life, and I can get away with it. And if I'm comfortable with it, I do it. But it's just not really my thing. And I like a lot of male hobbies. I gravitate towards male things as a woman, right? But that doesn't make me a man.
correct.
So, and I think that we're conflating those things. We're sort of meshing those things together, and it can become very confusing. I think, especially for our youth. Like,
I
don't think they know what they are.
I think it is totally confusing to our youth.
Really did become a slippery slope, and a lot of gays and lesbians and bisexual people have gotten sort of pulled into all of this, because when you think about it, the gender ideology stuff really wasn't so much about being gay. We were gay and we talked about those things, I guess, a bit, but I think we all kind of understood that we were who we were. We are who we are as far as our our gender is concerned, or our sex rather, because again, this conflation of sex and gender and all that. But to me, what gender boils down to, and I'll probably get shit for this. I think I've said it before and I've gotten shit for it, and I kind of don't care. It really boils down to personality traits. When you think about it, you know, Vicky, my personality is geared towards liking masculine things and wearing masculine clothes. Big deal. I think we put too much into this stuff. We put too much emphasis on what your masculine, feminine qualities are in each other, and having to label it and make other people believe in it and accept it on some very special, deep level. You know, people that are secure with themselves, they just do what they're going to do. Yeah. And I think a lot of this stems from being insecure and stems from comorbidities and other mental illnesses that have nothing to do with transsexuality, with gender ideology. But we've created this environment where anything goes and everything needs affirmation, when affirmation comes from within.
Yeah, it has to come from within. If you're not comfortable with who you are, no matter how much somebody affirms you, it might feel good at that moment. It might feel like, wow, like they see me, they really see me. And that's important. I don't want to discredit when you are affirmed in some way, right? Whether it be your gender, or maybe you don't feel very attractive and somebody, you know, tells you how beautiful you are.
Sure.
Or, you know, or like, right, or like you did a really good job at something. So those affirmations, I think, are very, very important, but they don't,
we need confidence
last.
Boosters.
They don't last.
Right.
They're little dopamine blasts, which always feels good, right? We're always seeking that dopamine. And the true happiness, the true comfortability within your skin comes when you can stand on your own 2 feet.
Yep.
And when you can be who you are. I was on a live and this person came up and I was discussing the erasure of the homosexual. And he was like, yeah, I totally agree with that. Like we should erase them. And I was like, I'm like, okay, buddy. I'm like, first off, I think reading comprehension is important.
Yes.
So let's have a conversation. And you know, by the end of the conversation, did I change his mind on most things? No.
Right.
But he had a conversation with somebody.
Well, and that's the thing, is that one conversation isn't necessarily going to change the mind. It's planting the seed that as that person goes back into their life and has whatever experiences that they're having, those things sometimes stick. And later on, you kind of circle back to something that someone said to you maybe 2 years ago. And you're like, oh, maybe that's what they were talking about.
Yeah.
So it's the long-term results, I think, that people like you and me too, but I feel like you're particularly very good at legitimately being middle ground. I don't know that I am. I think I'm a little bit more rigid in some of my thinking, and I don't know if it's the woman in me that's guarded because of particular problems that have occurred within the community that have negatively impacted women. I don't know what that is. I think that's what it's rooted for me, that I'm a bit more rigid, but I appreciate the way you're organically doing this. You're not pretending. You're not faking. I mean, neither one of us are faking, but our approaches are both organic. That's the point.
But I want to be clear, even though I try to hold a very middle space for people, right? And I consider myself centrist, center right, center left on certain things, right? I have very strong opinions about every single thing, from women's reproductive rights to racial relations to immigration to I have all of those opinions, right? I have my own set of opinions.
Sure.
And some people might consider them, problematic or not, depending on the person. But
Same.
what I really try to foster is that even though I don't agree with you, I want to sit down and talk with you because I might learn something from you. So
Right.
let's talk about something that I have no skin in the game. Okay? But you do.
Yeah.
And I hate this topic, but we're going to do it real quick just to kind of show what I'm saying. Okay?
Sure.
Women's bathrooms and the trans community. Okay?
Yep.
My overall arching opinion is if you cause the least amount of disturbance going into a men's room, that is where you belong. If you cause the least amount of disturbance in a woman's room, that's where you need to go. Do I think that all of the I do not think it is, and this is going to give me so much trouble. I don't think it is real trans people that are the problem in the women's restroom. I think it's the faker. I think it is the entitled men that think that they are just, do whatever they want. But the average transsexual individual is going in there to go take a piss and to leave.
And get out.
Well, hopefully they wash their hands.
And that's the thing, is that this never used to be a problem. It became a problem.
Now there was a change within the trans community. The change was, and again, I really, my opinion from a cisgendered gay man, which I think is a redundancy, like a caffeinated coffee. It only became an issue when we started forcing women to accept those people who are not willing to respect the space. That's the key difference. That's the key difference.
And I think that a lot of people, because we look like critics, even when we just explore it in this way, that they somehow make this assumption that we only want like super duper passable people. You know what I mean? And I think that for the most part, people who are serious do their best to pass, and they do they do and they don't. And I don't even know if I care about that, to be honest with you, because I think passability is
so subjective.
It's subjective, but also effort is very clearly laid out.
That's the difference. It's the effort.
And we all know that trans women don't pass as easily for obvious reasons. They've gone through male puberty. They have, broader shoulders, bigger backs, wider wingspans. No matter how much estrogen they take, they're going to have a certain amount of maleness to them unless they have a lot of cosmetic surgery done. And I'm not necessarily like advocating for them to do that if they can't or they won't or whatever. My biggest thing is when it's put in the context to biological women that I'm, quote, going to do whatever I want, whether you like it or not, and whether you're comfortable with it or not. That's when women put the brakes on and say, you know what? I'm going to vote for President Trump because I don't want to deal with these misogynistic fools who are telling me what to do in the private spaces that we have created and fought for decades. And that is including sports. That's including even female prisons. I mean, these women are getting raped in female prisons by men because laws in California and other states have been created. Again, you're enshrining this gender ideology stuff into law where men can now identify as women, move out of a male prison into a women's prison, and guess what? Their rap sheet shows that they're a violent criminal that landed themselves in prison in the first place for violating women. And now you've placed them in a female prison with other females, and you're
Yeah.
going to tell me and the rest of the population that we're bigots and we're TERFs and we're terrible people because we have a problem with that? You see, that's the thing that I can't back down from.
And this is one of those topics that don't affect me personally, right?
Right.
So I listen to my sister, my female friends, my niece, the
Right.
women in my life.
And, it's like I can't speak for all women, obviously, because I'm one person in a sea of millions. But I think most people want to exercise common sense. And I think that once this stuff tones down a little bit, we're going to see how it works out in practice. And unless, and this is the thing, everyone in this sort of TQIA plus camp and you know what camp I'm talking about. I'm talking about the extremists in that camp. All they do all day is talk about how they're constantly oppressed, discriminated against, and victimized. And my advice to these people is to please show me where this is happening. I want you to tell us where this is happening.
Yes.
And I want you to make sure you understand the difference between someone having a difference of opinion and something rising to a crime. Because everything seemingly is a crime right now with these people. And some of it is called lack of coping. People aren't always going to love you. Sorry. And it's same goes with me as a lesbian.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, and to kind of bring it back a little bit to the political aspect of it is I think that first off, we're having this kind of huge swing to the right because of how left we have been.
There was one other thing, and this goes right into the LGBT stuff that we've been talking about. And I know it's something that I think we've talked about offline a little bit that you have a pretty strong opinion on. And I think my opinion goes right exactly into the same vein as yours. Recently, it's been floating around on social media. There's been a disabled person that has recently received a top surgery, and they have an Instagram and a GoFundMe and all these other things. And it's looking very, very suspicious and very scary for a lot of people. I think that there's something really wrong here, and it goes to show just how far the trans activists are willing to go to sort of justify to no end what they're doing to support their own narrative. And they've not only gone after children, but now they're going after disabled people. So tell me what your take is on that.
I am more than happy to tell you my take on that because, and please, when you publish this, put a link to my TikTok on that particular subject. Though,
absolutely.
In that particular video, you pretty much just have me cursing.
I'm going to challenge myself and be very kind when I say this.
I am not going to be kind or challenge myself. Nope. God bless him for being able to be that strong. This is absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting that we are doing this to one of our disabled individuals. Oh my God. Like, what the f*** is wrong with my community? This is exactly what I have been talking about. This is exactly why the LGB needs to separate, and we need to have the TS stand up and disavow all of this. Stop appropriating the trans movement for this kind of disgusting ideology. I can't even believe they did this. This is absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Blessed be, my friends. I love you all.
So let me first and foremost say, I do not know this individual. I do not have access to their medical records. I do not know if they are intellectually disabled as well. What I am going to say is that even if this person was intellectually capable of and of age to do this, which they weren't at the start of it. They were on hormones prior. I absolutely 100% know that even if they did not have that intellectual disability, this particular physical condition does affect can affect your cognitive skills. Okay. Whether or not this particular person has that or not, that is not here nor there. Because again, I do not know this person. But what I can say is that this had more to do with the movement, the ideology, the parents or caregivers' self-ego. And I honestly believe that the doctors, all of them that have been involved, down to the anesthesiologist, that person, the nurse that handed the scalpel to the doctor, down to even, because this is how strongly I feel about this, the janitor who came in and cleaned up afterwards, because it is so blatantly irresponsible. This person is incapable of physically taking care of themselves. And now you have given them a whole new host of things that they need to deal with. From the hormones to cleaning their wounds. They can't do it. And you are making their caregiver, whether it be their direct support person or their own parents or whoever it might be, you're giving them more work. This person can't take care of themselves. And I'm sorry, but how do you add to that list of things that need to be done in the name of gender ideology? So that is really where my issue comes in. If they happen to have the intellectual ability, right? People talk about communication. Oh, they can't communicate. There are ways to I work with the autistic population. I have one individual, they have a tablet, they type in what they need to say, and it says it, right? Just because somebody is nonverbal does not mean that they are not intelligent.
Right.
So I come down to like maintenance care. That's really where I kind of stand on this. They can't take care of themselves. And if they have the ability to ask to do this, I'm sorry, but no, because you're not capable. You're not capable to take care of yourself or truly make these kind of decisions. And honestly, what little I do know, they were on hormones for a year or two prior to them turning 18 and then being able to go in and have the surgery. No.
It's absolutely terrible. I mean, what I found really disgusting and scary and sad and shocking was when you go to this Instagram, they have the, day 1 on T, day 5 on T, 1 month on T. And I'm going, what is this for? Who are you showing this to? Like, what are you trying to prove? As someone who to me, it's like they want to not just say that children are this way, but all sorts of all over the spectrum of disabled people are this way, and it's perfectly acceptable. And if anyone questions it, you're a bigot. I mean, it's just the same thing over and over, and they just keep violating the boundaries of people further and further and further and further back. Like, when is it going to stop?
At the end of the day, like this, I think it's another market. It's another market for big pharma. Our healthcare system, plain and simple, is not about curing us, not about making us healthy. It is about managing symptoms and making a customer for life. And when you transition children and you transition this disabled individual, first off, the disabled person already is a customer for life. What more do you want from them?
Right. And none of that could have been helped for sure. We know that for sure. You know, this other stuff is questionable in terms of you know, we don't have enough studies. These studies are all bullshit.
No, we don't.
But yeah,
and I am absolutely devastated for this person, and I think this is where I'm going to leave it. I'm devastated for our community. I'm devastated for our country and the world. I am glad that countries like Sweden and Denmark, the UK, has stopped doing these practices, these barbaric experimental practices.
Go check him out on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Rocky the Middle Gay. Again, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.
My pleasure. Thank you.